Hello, everyone. So I'm James Gagnon. I go by Jamie. I'm an assistant professor here at the School of Biological Sciences at the University of Utah.
Hi, I'm Talia Karasov, and likewise, I'm an assistant professor here at the University of Utah.
And today we're going to be talking about why do a PhD and how to choose the best PhD program for you.
So, before we get started, we wanted to talk a little bit about our personal experiences. And I was curious to hear from Jamie why you, Jamie, decided to do a PhD.
Ooh, that is a great question. So when I was an undergraduate, I went to a more undergraduate focused research place, and I really liked my biology classes, but there weren't a lot of opportunities to do biology research at my university. So I went to this medical school that was on the other side of the city, and I was invited to work in a lab that worked on mouse developmental biology, which was not my choice, but it seemed like a fun choice at the time. And then over that year of doing like my senior thesis in that lab, and then I'm working there for a few more months afterwards, I got really excited about doing experiments, and I sort of realized that when you're doing biology research, you can get really close to the edge of knowledge, like really quickly. And so I had my little piece of the unknown, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. And I had my experiment, and I just sort of mastered that experiment. And I just sort of fell in love with the ownership over a mystery. It was like, here's a little mystery, and I'm the only person in the world who's going to try and solve this mystery right now. And I really liked that. And I enjoyed being in a lab of people that I could share my mystery with and ask their advice on how to do experiments. And it was really empowering. And so that was pretty much it. My parents aren't academics. I didn't have like a ton of role models for, choosing a path of academia. It was pretty simple for me. I graduated, had applied to graduate school because I loved research, got into a graduate program, and then I went there. That was pretty much it. Yeah. What about yourself?
Ever have second doubts about what you were doing?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's right. The first year or so of graduate school are really amazing because you're thrown into a new population of people. You get to, meet all these interesting people, do rotations in different labs, join a lab. Then you take classes, you have your prelim exams, and then there's this period in the middle of graduate school where nothing really happens. You're struggling with your research project. Sometimes it feels like everybody else is making progress, but you're just, treading water, barely keeping your head above the water.
Doing the same experiment again and again.
You're doing the same, yeah, exactly. Tuning one thing or the other, and it doesn't seem to be helping. And your thesis advisor is just saying, just keep trying different things, and it feels like you're stuck. And did I ever seriously consider leaving? No, I got super frustrated on occasion. And it was only, the advice of the senior graduate students in the lab that sort of kept me at it. That they made it clear that what I was going through was pretty much the standard. It's just like, this is how research goes. There's a lot of nothing, and then these bursts of activity where things actually happen. So it was rough. We got through it, thanks to the community around me. Good questions, Talia. I want to ask you the same question. So why did you choose to go to graduate school?
So I think like you, I didn't know in the beginning that I wanted to go to grad school. I had a very diverse undergraduate education where I studied a bunch of languages. I was an economics major for some time. I knew I liked biology and I knew I liked the natural world, but I don't know, I wasn't too focused for a while. And then I started working in a lab, and that seemed like a lot of fun to be somehow unfocused and focused at the same time, that I could pursue new questions. And there was so much encouragement to pursue new questions, and you're learning all the time. And I liked that. And when it came time to graduation, I also still didn't exactly know what I would do, but graduate school was an option, and I thought I'll keep doing this because I like it, and I'll stop it when I stop liking it. And here I am, however many years later, which I won't mention. Yeah, I'm so happy I continued in that. But like you, there are hard times in grad school. But that's also part of why I felt proud when I finished it, because it wasn't easy the whole time. You get a lot of grit and strength from persevering through difficult times and through actually doing something hard.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think, this is just off the top of my head, but I feel like calling it graduate school makes it sound like just an extension off of your undergraduate, studies. But it
Mm-hmm.
was so different than that, because after that first year when you take classes, like the part where you're just doing research full time and you're just a professional scientist for the first time, it just feels really different. And I think learning to deal with that transition is part of the sort of down period of graduate school, is
Yes, it's adjusting
that
to
adjustment period. Yeah,
the new requirements of your mind.
exactly. Do you keep in touch with a lot of people you met in graduate school?
Yeah, they're some of my best friends. You go through a lot together.
Yeah,
You have a lot intellectually, really the most interesting people to talk to when you're thinking about your project. And you?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there was that really tight knit class, my cohort, the group that entered graduate school together. And I even met them on interview weekends, and I even conspired with one of them to make sure we both went to the same graduate school program because we just liked each other a lot.
And it
And
worked.
yeah, and her and I have been friends ever since. She had a son who was born right before we started graduate school. And so he's always been like a physical representation of how old I am, because now he's like as tall as me. And so it's like a very nice visual representation of how long it's been, how long we've known each other. So I really like that.
Okay, so on to our discussion with you, the diversity fellows, on why to pursue a PhD. So why should I get a PhD? The first is something that Jamie and I just were talking about, which is this idea of a personal journey. You are going on an intellectual journey where you get to learn new things, both about science and about the world, but also you get to learn a lot of things for yourself and learn skills for your life, which are not given in your life.
Absolutely. I think another really cool part of graduate school is you really are generating new knowledge. After your entire undergrad, most of what you're doing is, reading other people's thoughts and then generating your thoughts about their thoughts, sort of secondary knowledge. But here you're right up close to the primary source, and you get to solve mysteries, define a little mystery, and then solve that mystery. And I think that's such an important thing to learn, that you really only get from graduate school.
So in the same vein, in graduate school, you get paid to invest in yourself. You get paid to make yourself a better educated person with more skills, with more ability to get through life. And you come out at the end having made a little bit of money.
And I would add to that, there's also other benefits, because a lot of graduate programs and academia in general have tons of training programs that you can take advantage of to learn how to market yourself, how to build a better CV, how to talk, how to write, these really valuable skills. And I think maybe we're going to talk about this a little more later, Talia. But graduate school is also agnostic to market forces. So, right now, fall 2020, not a great time to be going on the job market. But PhD programs, for the most part, are still going to be admitting students. And you're never going to lose your position in graduate school because the stock market crashed. So I was in graduate school. I'm going to date myself here, but I was in graduate school during the 2007, 2008 crash. And that impacted a lot of people, including, my parents. My dad lost his job during that. But I still had a position in graduate school. So it's pretty buffered against the impacts on the sort of broader job market.
So here's one that I have only learned through time, really. And this is cracking the glass ceiling of the jobs that are available to you. So for people who are not interested in academia, it's oftentimes tempting, academia in the long term, it's oftentimes tempting to want to go into biotech immediately out of undergrad, for example. But one thing that I've seen from seeing my friends is that if you go directly into biotech from undergrads, sometimes you will be faced with this glass ceiling of the type of job you can get. You enter immediately into a position that's a good position, but because you don't have a higher degree, you can't move anywhere. And so you're stuck in that position perhaps for decades. With a PhD, you sometimes, instead of being the person who does 60,000 qPCRs a week, you get to be the person who's designing the project. Maybe you want to do the 60,000 qPCRs. I bet you could also alongside designing the project, but you get the choice.
That sounds better to me for sure. That sounds like 10 years of that sounds like carpal tunnel in your wrist to me. So
yes.
That's a great point. I mean, I think we have to acknowledge that this is a crazy year, though. Like, is 2020 really the year we commit to 4, 5, 6, 7 years of graduate school? I mean, who knows where we're going to be in 7 years from now? Seems a little insane. We're facing challenges of police brutality, COVID, these forest fires that are rampaging across the West. Talia, did you see the pictures of the murder hornets from this summer? Yeah, those were terrifying. I was scared. I'm not sure I'd want to go to wherever those are. So it seems a little nuts to think, oh, this is the year I go to graduate school. But I think it's important, to consider this as a great option for all the reasons we just discussed. Mm-hmm. And I think we're about to go through some other myths of graduate school. And then we'll talk about the reality related with those. So, yeah, do you want to take the first myth, Talia?
Sure. So I am sure that all of you have heard some people say some negative things about graduate school, about why not to pursue a degree in graduate school. And I think it's important to be clear-eyed about what's reality and what is myth and what is situation dependent. So first is one myth that I think we see pretty frequently, which is that graduate school and what we study in this rigorous time when you're focused on one topic is developing skills that you will not use in the real world.
Definitely heard that a lot.
Okay, but I think that this is so deeply a myth because so firstly, from a totally financial perspective, biology is one of the fastest growing tech industries. I mean, we read about the biology tech industry almost every day now with the vaccine development, right? Those people are trained in biology, and many, if not most of the people working on those vaccines probably have a PhD in biology or related field. But then also beyond the direct application of your biology skills, doing a PhD teaches you a lot about reasoning and teaches you a lot of skills of interacting with people, teaches you oftentimes statistics, hypothesis testing, how to be a productive person. And these skills are applicable in most, I would say, the 99% of jobs that you would want to pursue.
Yeah, I agree. And Talia, I think, I think graduate school is really training you to be a better citizen in the real world. It doesn't have to be in academia, also in industry. If you get a real job out of undergrad, they're not going to teach you how to be a good writer, how to be a good presenter. And so that training is something you really only get all this for free in graduate school. And that's like a really amazing feature of it.
Yeah. You and I have both talked before about how several of our friends went on to positions that weren't in biology, but used a lot of skills working in statistics or computational skills or other writing skills. So it's not uncommon to move into a new field that uses these same skills that you learned in grad school.
Absolutely. And those people, I'm sure, don't regret the time they spend in graduate school. I can speak for my friend Luke, who works at Snapchat now. All the data that he learned studying how brains work, all the analysis tools that he learned are now directly applicable to what he's doing now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Myth number 2.
I can't afford to go to graduate school. And this, I think, is another really pernicious myth. And the idea is that, oftentimes we take on a lot of debt going to undergraduate. Some of us are lucky enough to get, tuition waivers or fellowships or other financial aid that helps us pay for college. But a lot of us are saddled with debt. And so to the idea of going on for more school seems like a bad idea. And I thought this too. My parents didn't go to graduate school. I had a lot of debt from undergraduate, so I was really concerned about this. But I think this is actually a myth. So this is not always true. So for example, all my student loans from undergraduate, I was able to defer those loans. So I didn't accrue any interest on them until graduate school was over. And I got paid to go to graduate school, right? So in addition to, the school paying for your classes, they also pay you a stipend, and it's enough to live on. You're not gonna be super rich, but it's a lot more money than you made as an undergraduate, I would imagine. So when I went to graduate school, my starting salary was about as much as my mom was making, which was crazy at the time, and it was definitely enough to live on. Yeah, I lived in a small apartment in a city, but I had my own apartment. I bought my own groceries. It was great. And so, here at the University of Utah, starting stipend is $28,000 a year. And because the cost of living is quite low in Utah, some graduate students have bought condos on this salary. It's not impossible to take big steps in your 20s, even on a grad student stipend. Again, that stipend is going to change depending on where you go to graduate school, but it usually will be enough to live on, which is good. Obviously, this isn't going to work for everybody. Different people's family situations are different. Sometimes you need to support parents, siblings, children on your own salary. And that's something you're going to have to consider when you think about graduate school for sure. But I will point out, if you can survive through this period making, $20-something thousand a year, that's really going to be a springboard for higher salaries going forward. Whether you stay in academia or not, a PhD is definitely going to lead to higher earnings over your lifetime than not having one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we have a figure about that later.
Perfect. Yes. Do you want to explain this figure, Talia?
Sure. We have a figure about that right now.
Perfect. Here we are.
So this is our graphic for the day about the benefits, the financial benefits of going to graduate school. And this is looking at data about levels of educational attainment from 2019. So it's showing that people with different levels of degree, their highest degree, and their unemployment rate and their median weekly earnings. And the only thing you need to take away from this graphic is that the people with the lowest unemployment rate last year were people who had doctoral degrees, and the people with the highest, basically the same as professional degrees, but the highest kind of bracket of median weekly earnings were people with doctoral degrees. And so this is, if you are able to get through the years of your PhD on the lower income than you would have with a biotech job or whatever other job you tried to pursue, if that's an okay situation, then in the long run, you will come out in a better economic shape, most likely.
And I haven't seen the breakout in 2020, but since the unemployment rate has gone up, I'm going to guess this has hit people without a PhD or without a bachelor's degree even harder.
Myth number 3 is that the demands of a PhD are such that one cannot start a family. So this is not true. We will add the caveat. I think both Jamie and I accept that there are many situations that are not opportune. So there are some people who this is not feasible for, but in reality, we both know many people who had kids during graduate school. And the key is that if you have a good community around you, so if you choose your advisor well, and you have a support network around you, that actually grad school can be a very good time to have a family because you can have a flexible schedule. The grad students do not have to be fitting into a 9 to 5 schedule all of the time. Again, this is dependent on where you are, but it is a time when you could actually grow your family more than in some other jobs where you cannot squish the time around to be able to accommodate other people in your life.
Absolutely. And I just want to reinforce what you said. This really depends on your advisor. If they're a good advisor who appreciates what you bring to their lab, they're going to be very accommodating. And so, yeah, it just really speaks to the importance of a good advisor. Yeah. So number 4, a myth of graduate school, I have to work all the time. I don't have time for my hobbies, for my friends. I'm going to be in the lab all the time, day and night. Chained to the bench, right? And I think this is also a myth. I'm not totally sure this was ever true, but there seems to be some perception that, oh, back in the 60s, back in my day, everybody worked all the time, and they would go to dinner and then they would go back to the lab and work all the and I'm not sure that was true back then, and it's certainly not true now. And I think there are people who do work a lot. I certainly know friends of mine who basically voluntarily wanted to work all the time. They were just so fascinated with their scientific research. Yeah. But personally, I can only work a certain amount of hours every week before I start to go crazy. And then after the crazy part, I get depressed. So I really need my hobbies. I need to go outside and get some fresh air and talk to my friends and pursue my hobbies in my spare time. It makes me a much more efficient scientist and a happier scientist. Yeah. And so, scientific research is really hard work. And sometimes you may have to put in those long hours. But most advisors are going to give you flexibility in how to do your science. And I think, I personally really like the flexibility of when I work. That's really nice. But I think other people treat it like a 9 to 5, and they'll work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. They know what they want to do. They do it during those hours. They don't answer emails after 5 p.m., which sounds nice to me. And they're very successful. And so I actually think science is much more flexible than a lot of fields that insist that you're there 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. And at 5 p.m., everybody, closes their computer and leaves. And so I really appreciate the flexibility.
And then the last one, the myth that grad school is isolating, hard, and I will be depressed. I will be one of those grad students in the movies who's downtrodden and a sad sack. So this is definitely not true. I think for both of us, we both loved our grad school experiences, and I know the majority of people I know really loved graduate school. So grad school is hard. Grad school is a time that's trying, and you're learning all the time, and you're having to push yourself all of the time. But in most places, if you have a good advisor and you have a community of other students around you, which is true of most places, then it's a place of community and growth and a lot of affection, and it's a very positive experience. It's very important that the mentor is very important for dictating the positivity of this experience. I think I've seen this again and again, and Jamie has too, that the relationship with the mentor will dictate a lot of how the grad student experience will go. And so part of what we're going to talk about now is how you can choose a program that will ensure that you can learn the things you want, you can have the kind of lifestyle you want, whether it's growing a family or not growing a family, and to not be isolated and depressed. Because it's very possible, and it's more possible than not. It's more the rule than the exception that you can have those things in biology grad school. But so now we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is another one of those, there's no one size that fits all. There's no one graduate program that's perfect for everybody. And I think that's great, because then you have an opportunity to pick a graduate program that suits your interests, maybe your scientific interests, maybe your hobbies, maybe, the style of science that you want to do. So I think Talia and I put together a couple pointers about, what to look for in a good graduate program. And I guess I'll start. Let's see, what's the first of our, yes. So I think what you want to look for is a place where you can get training in the experimental sciences that interest you. So, for example, if you're interested in genetics, the university we're at, the University of Utah, is a spectacular place to learn genetics. We're a real powerhouse in genetics research, environmental genetics, um, genetics and ecology, molecular genetics, all of these things. We have a great community for that. And so, if that's something you're interested in, this would be a great place that you would fit in with. And we have these strengths that are sort of strengths of our graduate program. And every graduate program has that. Agricultural universities are going to have these amazing, focused agriculture related research programs. And that is definitely the best place to go for a graduate degree in those areas. And the University of Utah might not be. And so I think that's something to look for in graduate programs is like, you see a community of like-minded people who are interested in the same topics you are that you're going to get to join. And do they have the equipment and the facilities that are going to allow you to learn, to get that training?
So second is training in professional skills. So this goes hand in hand with what Jamie was saying, but you are going to grad school to get a training on many levels, as we said before, but it's important to choose a school that will give you the training that you want. So if you need access to, let's use the agricultural example, if you need access to agricultural fields to be able to do the field experiments that you need, then you need to be able to access those fields and to get the skills for how to do those experiments. Or similarly, if you want computational skills, you need to go to a place that will give you the training in those computational skills. Granted, most major universities these days will have major computational programs, so that one is not as specific as something like agriculture or maybe access to marine biology facilities, for example.
Yes, Utah, not a great place to study marine organisms.
You can make it work.
That's true. I study fish and it's going just fine, even in the desert. So. And third, I think it's really important to mention that your quality of life is really important. So for many of us, this will be some time spent during the 20s, maybe early 30s of our life. And enjoying that experience is really important. And I think that really comes down to a few key features. It's sort of what are you interested in and who's the community of people that's going to be around you. And so when you go on these interview weekends, like I was saying, look around you and see the graduate students who are already in the program and see the graduate students you're interviewing with. Are they people that you find interesting, that you want to get to know a little bit better? Are there professors who you think are going to be good mentors, good support team? And do you think it's a place that you could live for 5 or 6 years of your life? I think that's really important. And I know that was a really important part in making Talia and I's time in graduate school so wonderful. So when Talia and I thought about how to choose a graduate program, we really broke it down into these 3 categories. The training you'll receive in experimental science, the training you'll receive in professional skills, and of course, the quality of life that you're going to have while you're a graduate student in that program. So if we start and just think a little bit about the training you'll receive in experimental science, your ability to conduct science is going to depend on a few things. It's going to depend on the academic rigor of that graduate program, the knowledge you'll receive, the courses you'll take, and of course that will be dependent on your interest, the slice of biology that really captivates you. You're going to want to look for that in a graduate program. And of course, the experimental rigor. So the mentors that are available in the research topics that interest you and their openness to taking you on for rotations, where you basically have a tryout to see if the lab really suits your interests and you like the environment there. And of course, you'll want to have access to cutting edge tools for science. And we often talk about these toys, fancy microscopes, fancy computers, fancy equipment that allow you to do science in new ways, maybe tackle a classic question using some new methodologies. And so these in general are the things you're going to want to be looking for when you're trying to find a graduate program that's going to give you the best training in experimental science.
So category 2 is training in professional skills. So your future career, whatever your future career is, be it in academia, be it in biotech, be it something totally outside of biotech, there are some skills that are needed in almost every career. And that's ability to communicate, ability to write, and your ability to reason. And as I said, and as Jamie has said, we've said it several times, even in this short presentation, that you will learn all of these things in your PhD. And I would bet money that you will come out better in all 3 categories at the end of a PhD than when you went in.
Yep, practice makes perfect. And you'll be doing a lot of writing, a lot of communicating, and a whole lot of reasoning every day in your scientific journey through graduate school. And then finally, I think quality of life is really important. Graduate school is where you're going to spend probably a good chunk of your 20s or 30s. And it's important that you enjoy that journey. It shouldn't be a struggle from start to finish. And I think that quality of life is going to depend on your academic community, the people in your lab, your mentors, your thesis committee, and your support network of other people in the department who support you, administrators, other students, also your friends, not just inside the graduate program, but maybe also outside the graduate program, people you meet in the city you're going to spend a few years of your life. And then finally, the travel that you'll get to do as a graduate student. If we were to think about our community, the community that matters, that community is going to be pretty diverse. You're going to have a primary research mentor, but you're also going to have access to lots of informal mentors, be that other graduate students, postdocs, other professors, for example, on your thesis committee. You're going to be able to find colleagues to talk about your science and talk about your life and your journey through graduate school. And those people are really important to you. And then you're going to have an opportunity to meet lots of new people who may share your interests. And they're also going to be new to the graduate program and new to the city that you live in or the town that you live in. And so there's this great opportunity to make a bunch of lifelong friends.
Both Jamie and I made really great friends in our grad school experiences. And he was just a gaggle of the people who became important in our respective lives. Here's Jamie. Jamie, where are you right here?
So this is on a lab retreat to a ski resort in Maine with my lab. That's me in the lower right. I'm sitting right next to a graduate student who's one of my great friends.
This is you?
That's me, yep. And then I'm sitting next to a great friend of mine. And actually, I count a lot of these people as my friends. I've published papers with them, but more importantly, we've been there for each other for a long time. And who's on the left? Where are you? This is a beautiful photo.
This is in the Adirondacks. So I did my PhD in Chicago, but we decided to drive out and do a Ragnar, which is one of those crazy 250-mile races in the Adirondacks, and we didn't sleep. And I felt so bad in that picture. But
so this is afterwards.
This is after we finished, and I hadn't slept in, I don't know, probably 40 hours. But we were all of us in grad school together, and I'm in touch with everyone there still.
Graduate school also lets you travel all over the place. So here, Talia and I just sifted through our memories, our distant memories of graduate school and postdoc, and thought about places we visited. So Talia, it looks like you got to go to the Middle East.
In which color am I here? Yes. So I went to Israel. I got to go to
cool.
Conferences and then meet with the collaborator.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think science can bring you to places you'd never go to otherwise. Yes. Maybe I'm not a super brave traveler, but science has dragged me to all these really interesting places, and it really opened me up to different ways of life all around the world. And I hope that continues in the near future. I think one of my favorite science trips was to Bergen, Norway. Bergen, Norway is this little town on the west side of Norway, and it's so beautiful. It's a beautiful town, and then the mountains rise up behind it. And I never would have ever thought to go there on my own. But
yeah, you get to go to places that you wouldn't plan a vacation to, right? And then it's more special because you're there, and it's not a bunch of tourists; it's you and a bunch of Norwegian people.
Right? It definitely feels different, and I really like that. Yeah.
Okay, guys, I think this brings us to a close. We leave you with this beautiful vision of the place where we get to live now that we're at the end of this first stage of our careers of PhD and postdocs and starting our assistant professorships. But I hope we have demonstrated to you how one can gain a lot from going to grad school. And if one makes informed decisions, can really also have a lot of fun while doing it.
Absolutely. And it was fun to reminisce a little bit with you, Talia, about graduate school as well. It
Likewise.
was a really fun part of my life. I learned a lot. I really learned who I was as a person in graduate school. So it was a great opportunity. And if any of the fellows who are watching this video have any questions, please feel free to email us. So if you look us up on the University of Utah website, you can find our email address. We'd love to hear from you about why you chose a graduate program. All right. Bye, everybody.
Signing off.